What's going on, everybody? I have got a freaking treat for you. I have an amazing guest of mine, Tyler Cauble, on the line here in just a second. I just want to, bring this guy on because not only has this guy had an incredible success in the real estate brokerage side, but he's now doing unbelievably amazing things, which we're going to learn all about in just a minute on the development and the investment side, which I really want to share with my audience because so many of you guys are interested in investing in real estate, and so many of you guys are real estate agents first, and everyone knows the game is to eventually buy the real estate yourself. So without further ado, Tyler, thank you for coming on the show, my friend.
Yeah, Henry, excited to be here, man. This will be a fun conversation. I haven't done too many interviews where I've dived further into, going from a broker to the investor side. So this will be good.
I love it, man. Well, listen, I do want to rewind the clocks a little bit. My favorite part is always learning about the childhood stories that kind of brought you and made you the person that you are today. So let's rewind the clocks, because I'm imagining that real estate wasn't always the first thought back when you were a kid, right?
Yeah, no, I've always been kind of entrepreneurial. I started working for my grandfather. He had a construction company back in the day, and would work every summer for him, starting at 12 years old, just to make some side cash. And it was fun. I got to learn a lot about how construction works. So I know enough now to be dangerous, but not enough to GC my own projects by any means. And the summer that I graduated from high school, I got into sales. I sold Cutco knives. I had actually, my neighbor had sold knives to my mom when I was a kid, so we grew up using them. And so it was very easy for me to sell, and ended up being the top sales rep in the Eastern region that year, made like 30 grand. And so when I was sitting in class, freshman year of college, I was taking classes that I'd already taken before, and just thinking to myself, why the hell am I paying this much money to be sitting in this class, learning a watered down version of what I already learned back in high school, when if I annualized that $30,000 over 3 months, that's $120,000 a year getting into sales. So dropped out after my freshman year and got into commercial real estate. I got a job offer from a group here in town. They paid for me to get my real estate license and put me to work on a shopping center, an office building, and an industrial kind of little portfolio that they had in-house as the leasing agent. We were off to the races.
Wow. Okay. So I want to rewind the clock because I feel like you and I have so much similarities, which is, I'm also a college dropout. I also got into sales pretty early. So I definitely want to kind of break this stuff down. So when you were, doing the Cutco sales, right? Like, and, you're breaking some records. I love that. Like, what got you into the sales aspect? Were you obviously gung ho right off the bat, or did you have to get dragged into it?
No, I was gung ho right off the bat because I'd heard that my neighbor made $10,000 that summer. When you're working for $15 to $20 an hour in construction, slinging a sledgehammer all day, because, I was the cleanup guy. I was the guy that did all the grunt work so that the carpenters could come in and do all the fun stuff. You hear about making $10,000 being in people's houses and the air conditioning, and you're like, well, hell yeah, I'm going to do that. So it was, day one, hit the ground running as much as I could, just trying to make $10,000 that summer, because I knew that if he did it, I could do it.
And then were you always into self-development and working on your scripts and all that kind of jazz, or is that something you kind of developed up into now realizing how important it is?
Yeah, that was probably something I started working on around that same time, because, the Cutco sales training program is phenomenal. I think that everyone should go sell Cutco knives for at least a summer. If nothing else, the training that you're going to take away from it, how to sell, how to sit down with people, and how to deal with customers is invaluable. And, hopefully you make some money doing it. But part of their training program is a lot of personal development and books and reading and getting better at your business skills. And before that time, obviously in high school, you're not going to be reading sales books and personal development stuff, or at least I had never thought about that at the time. So that was a great time for me learning, how to learn about that stuff, right? You spend high school learning how to just learn. And then when I decided to drop out of college, I didn't want to just stop my education there. So I'm an avid reader, read books all the time. If it's not a hard copy, it's through Audible. I'm listening to podcasts all the time. And that's one thing that I tell people, look, college is not for everyone. It's not an absolute necessity, especially if you're going to be in the sales game, but your learning can never stop. You have to constantly be out there trying to absorb as much information as you can, because you never know when you're going to draw something from a book you read.
You crush it in the Cutco space, which I agree, by the way. Definitely, if you're, young enough, high school listening to this, and you need, you're thinking about getting your first sales job, I think Cutco is a fantastic first opportunity for someone to, get your feet wet. So I agree with that. So then you get into the commercial real estate world right off the bat. 21, right out the gate, you're basically in the commercial world, which is very rare to hear. I feel like a lot of people start in the residential world, or they don't get into commercial until later on. So I'd love to hear what your first take was when you got, first in the game, which you said you were a leasing agent, which obviously obviously has its own mess of issues. So I'm curious to understand how the first couple of years went.
Man, not good. I made $30,000 that year selling knives. So I was like, well, hell, if I'm going to be doing something bigger like commercial real estate, I'm going to make six figures my first year. And, I worked my ass off as if I was going to make $100,000 and made 40 grand. And my second year, I think I made 40,500. And, I was really disheartened, but everyone that I spoke to was like, it takes 3 to 5 years. Like, you're not going to make a significant amount of money. I wasn't on a team. I was with a boutique development firm. So we didn't have any education. I didn't have a support system. I was given listings, which was really nice. I had something to go work on. I didn't have to find my own business to start off. But, to put this in perspective, like my first day, I was like, what do I do? And the owner of the company just looked at me and he was like, go knock on doors until you find somebody that wants to sign a lease and we'll take it from there. I was like, okay. So that was the full extent of my education in commercial real estate. And so I basically door knocked for 2 years, read as many books as I could, listened to all the podcasts. Which, back in 2013, when I first got started, I think there were literally 2 podcasts on commercial real estate. Now there's hundreds. So it's really nice how much information there is out there, but it didn't take until or I guess I didn't take off until that third year. I made $120,000 my third year in commercial real estate. And it's funny how the 3 to 5 years in commercial is true. It's because there's such a steep learning curve. There's so much that you have to learn. And then 2, you've just got to be around for a little while. A lot of these businesses and buyers, investors, sellers, whomever, they're also getting called on by guys that have been in the business for 20 years, right? And if you're getting a call from a kid that's fresh out of college, that's been doing commercial real estate for a year versus a veteran that's been doing commercial real estate for 30, you're going with the guy that's 30-year veteran in the industry, no matter what. The kid could work harder on it, but they're going to go with the guy that has all the connections, that's been doing it for a while. And so there's a lot of that uphill battle there. But man, after that, what I've found in commercial real estate, it just takes off, especially if you're intentional about building your relationships and increasing your knowledge base. If you want to make a lot of money fast, I tell people, get into residential real estate and just work your tail off. You can make $100,000 your first year easily. But at some point, unless you're going to really build out a team or get serious about what residential real estate looks like, you're going to hit this inflection point where you can't really make much more. Right. Now you could go to New York City and work with Sirhan and, sell $160 million condos. But in most markets, it's not like that. Whereas in commercial real estate, if you can survive the first 6 months of making no commissions, if you can make it the first 3 years of making hardly any money, your trajectory in terms of income from brokerage is significantly higher. Most residential agents make between 100 and 200,000 a year. And of course, there are outliers, right? There's plenty of people that are making $1 million a year and plenty that are making zero. Most commercial real estate brokers that I know are making between 3 and 500.
And I love how clear you've made it, right? Like the beginning of someone's career, I couldn't agree with you more. I had the same exact situation that happened for me first few years, where it took me a while to get off the ground. Third year kind of started kicking off. I couldn't agree with you more. And it's funny because it's like you had alluded to, it's like also when you're doing leasing, like you're not going to get somebody where they're just like, you're knocking a door and they're out of their lease and looking to move tomorrow. Like you're probably going to get them when they got a year or two left on their lease and they're going to be looking to move when they're done. And it's like building up that pipeline, which is, again, longevity plays a huge role. And I couldn't agree with you more. Again, what you said was around the residential world is very hard to make a substantial amount of money consistently over time, because I agree, you're going to hit an inflection point. In the commercial world, I think that, again, if you're only doing 20 deals in the commercial world, you're making 2 or 3 times what someone will be making in the residential world. So, and let me ask you this now. You were in the leasing space for quite some time. How is your experience from the leasing to the sales world? How did you transition over? And obviously I want to talk about how now you're, avidly buying larger deals and developing deals. So I want to understand kind of how this whole kind of shifted.
I'm very entrepreneurial. I really enjoy everything about small business and startups and doing cool new ideas and making them happen. I think there's just something really unique and interesting to me about that. And so I really enjoyed the leasing side. We took brands from literally a tent pop up to 5 to 7 locations. That's really fun for me. I really enjoyed it. But then you start looking back on how much work you're putting into some of these leases versus how much you're getting paid, and it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. One of the brands that we expanded to 5 or 7 locations, those were $200,000, $300,000 leases because they were still signing only 11 or 1,200 square foot deals, and we're traveling 2 hours around Nashville to get these deals done. And while I enjoyed that, I could go do $1 million deal on the sales side, which there's a dime a dozen of those, and make 5 times the amount of money for honestly less effort. I mean, I've done some deals. We did a $1.8 million deal where it was a triple net investment. The investor never looked at it. I never looked at it. We just reviewed everything in the due diligence package. I probably spent 4 or 5 hours on it, got paid a 3% commission on a $1.8 million deal. So, it's over 50 grand for very little work. So I would much rather take that. Now, it does take a significant more amount of expertise on the investment side and how that works. But once you kind of nail that down, you get the right connections together. I mean, sales is the way to go. I enjoy it so much more, but I kind of look at it as like leasing is the bread and butter. Like that's the income that you need to make to live off of to keep the lights on. And then the investment sales are what's going to make your year.
It's also fascinating because I also speak to a lot of people who are in the residential world that are thinking about getting into the commercial world. You can't just stop doing what has been making you money. Just like if you're in the leasing trying to get into the sales world, you can't just do 0 leases and expect yourself to just float your income on this new activity of doing sales. So I completely agree there. And listen, there's a huge opportunity with sales, but also being able to do both. I call it being a dynamic realtor, which is being able to basically be what is needed in every situation, right? Like if you're going to do a lot of leases, do leases, and no one's saying you can't do both, right? And now you're even taking that a step further to doing the development. So, I mean, you started your own brokerage and then now are in the development world, buying deals yourself. So how did that all take place?
Yeah, so I started the brokerage in February of 2018 with the intent of building a 4-pillared company and vertically integrating it. So the original idea was brokerage, property management, construction, and development. And we've since cut construction off. We may get back into that, but construction is just a totally different animal. And it's really tough to want to have that as like a third-party business and doing deals for other people because it's so much work. And especially with where Nashville is right now, it's tough. But 6 months after starting the brokerage, we started the property management company because I had some clients that were selling out of residential portfolios and buying shopping centers, and they didn't have any property management contacts. And I was looking at that going, well, hey, there's a consistent monthly check to help keep the lights on. And I had that experience from working with a boutique firm. We had the company I started off working for had property management, construction, development, and leasing in-house. I got exposure to the different aspects of the industry. And so I knew that was kind of how I wanted to set up my companies once we got that going. So I guess it was about a year later, almost to the day, February of 2019, we acquired our first building. I raised $100,000 from 2 different investors, and it was a little 6,000 square foot, 2-tenant vacant building. We barely put any money into it, leased it up, flipped it within 18 months, maybe. For $750, and we bought it for $575. So it was a pretty good little jump there. But in 2019 was when I really started raising capital and syndicating these deals. So that year we bought 4 office buildings. In 2020, we bought a couple more properties, and we've been doing that ever since. So now we own about 2.1 million square feet of assets. It's mixed up between office, retail, industrial, hospitality. Kind of runs the gamut because I like to do a little bit of everything, and well over $50 million worth of assets.
It's amazing, man. I'd love to, just give you some kudos, because like a lot of people talk about it, and you went out and did it over the last couple of years, and you built something amazing, and you also did it in a time where it was kind of crazy to do so. That's awesome, man. So I'd love to learn a little bit more about the transition because a lot of real estate agents get into this business, especially commercial guys. I feel like they get in this world because they want to buy it, right? They want to be the landlord. They want to be the client one day. I want to talk about your first deal, how that went, kind of walk through that transition. We can talk about scaling things after that. So you said that you had found this little 6,000 square foot building. Talk to, again, for someone who's looking to buy their very first deal, bring me through that process, raising the money, the whole thing.
It was a very interesting deal. I mean, I up until this past year, I brokered even while we were buying all this stuff because I kind of treated that as my regular income. And that's what I always recommend to people. Like, don't just think that you're going to immediately make this switch and now you're an investor. You still got to keep the lights on. You still got to eat. And a lot of these deals are going to make money for 2, 3, 4 years, depending on what you're buying. So that first deal, I was representing a client that was trying to buy a building for his own company. And we found this one and put it under contract, started working on it. And his dad decided not to fund the equity investment into the project. And so he had to back out. Well, it's a $575,000 building. We've been working on it for 3 months. As a broker, I'm looking at that going, well, hell, there's a $17,000, $18,000 commission in here. I need that money. Like, let's figure this out. So I ended up finding another one of my clients that was willing to purchase it. And almost the same thing happened to him. The bank pulled out, decided they didn't want to lend on it, and he couldn't get the deal closed. And so, at that point, I've been working on the deal for 4 or 5 months. And I just said, you know what, assign it to me. I know this project really well. I know how it's going to work. I know how the leasing rates in the area. I know that it needs absolutely minimal work, and it's probably going to take us 24 to 36 months to get this stabilized, and then it's going to be a really good deal. So I called a couple of guys that I knew that, one was a doctor, one was another developer. And I said, hey, look, you guys have known me for 4 or 5 years at this point, never asked you for money. But you've known my trajectory in commercial real estate. You know that I know what I'm talking about. I've got a deal here. Here are the numbers. Here's what I think we're going to do. And here's my game plan. And, compared to the pitches that we have now with a 30-page offering memorandum and full underwriting and, all the data and reports, I mean, it was basically back a napkin, and those guys took a flyer on me. And, but it was because I had that relationship built up with them. And so they both threw in $50,000 each. I rolled in my $18,000 commission and then, came out of pocket like $7,000, I think, to make it an even $25,000 investment. So I took 15% for my equity investment, and then I took another 10% just for putting the deal together and running it. And that was kind of how we structured that. So my property management team and brokerage got to work, got paid on the leasing, we got paid on the property management. So I was able to kind of keep the lights on while that was going, got it leased up. I think within 12 to 15 months, we had a pharmacy, and then I forgot what the other tenant was downstairs, but we ended up selling it to the pharmacy. I went to them and I said, hey, look, you guys are paying me this amount per month. If you go to a bank right now, interest rates are X, and your monthly payment would be Y, which was a lot lower than whatever they were paying me in rent. You guys should buy this from me for $750. And so we negotiated for a couple months, and they ended up doing it.
And that's so cool, man. I mean, and it's interesting because how it actually began, how it even started, where you just kind of got frustrated about other people trying to do the deal, and you're like, fine, get out of my way. I got this. We're gonna take this down and find a way to make it work. So I love that, man. So now, you said over 2 million square feet later, tens of millions of dollars of deals later. Tell me about, the process now. Because obviously now you got teams, you have crews. It's like, okay, if somebody now owns a few pieces of real estate, maybe they have a single family, maybe they have a couple small commercial deals, and they want to get to where you're at. I want to talk briefly on the mindset around raising money, the mindset around finding the deals that you're finding, and how to, finally start building this portfolio out.
A lot of newer investors think that they are going to be asking, they're begging people for an investment, or they're asking somebody for money, right? And it's really not that. It's, hey, I'm giving you an opportunity to multiply your cash. Do you want it or not? If you've built up a good reputation, if you have built up a good network of people, then you shouldn't have a problem necessarily, at least getting your first bigger deal done. The first bigger deal that I did was a $980,000 acquisition with about $230,000 in construction, and I had to raise $400,000 on it. Now, I had never done a deal that size. I had worked on deals like that, right? I mean, we built a 144 unit apartment complex at the last development firm that I was with. So I had the way bigger experience than this, but I still didn't have the track record of doing a deal like this. So I went and found a bigger investor than I was. He owned probably 3,000 apartment units at the time, and asked him to partner with me on it. And he said, absolutely. Came in, gave him the lion's share. He had 70% of the general partnership, and I had 30. But the big thing there was that I was able to use his name to go out and raise equity from our investors. So we raised $400,000, and then I was able to use his balance sheet to get the loan because I didn't have any assets, right? So no bank's going to lend, that much money to me. And I mean, we crushed that deal. I think we got a 29.33% IRR in 16 months on that project. It was a 17-tenant office building that we delivered in January of 2020, completely vacant going into COVID. And we leased up 17 units by that August and sold it in October. So it was a great deal.
Okay, cool. Yeah. So because I want to make sure that people hear this, where I heard that you said that you're bringing them an opportunity, right? I completely agree with you. You're going to an investor, and instead of asking for money, I agree. You're bringing them an opportunity for them to maximize their capital, right? Make money on their money, let their money work for them. And these are deals that most of these people are not going to have access to, right? These people want great deals. I mean, if you have money sitting in the bank or quite a lot of it in the bank, you're going to want good opportunities to move it into. So I love that kind of mindset. What's one tip that you've learned, or one thing that you could share when it comes to raising money?
I mean, look, you've got the deal, right? There are so many people out there that have a ton of money that don't have deals, and they got to put that money somewhere. I mean, I'm thinking of one of our investors right now. He lives in Nashville, but he travels all the time with his family, right? I mean, they're always jumping on a private jet to go somewhere else. So guess what he's not doing? Spending time finding deals, and he's still making a ton of cash. So he needs to put all of that somewhere. So I'm bringing this guy an opportunity for him to put his cash somewhere, get tax benefits on it so that he can continue to afford his private jets and multiply that money. I mean, think about it. People don't feel weird about putting money in a bank account for 4%, right? It's just a thing that they do, right? So if you're going to come to them and say, hey, I'm going to give you 20% on your money, you're giving them 5 times what a savings account's going to give them right now, and tax benefits. right? So there's a lot of reasons as to why somebody would really want to put money with you, as long as you have the track record, as long as you have the right team around you, and they know that you know what you're doing.
Great tip, man. I love that. Let's wrap this up on the last couple of points here, which is now you're in the development world. You got the property management team. Like, what's next for you, man? Like, I'm just curious. Like, what's the vision?
Yeah, I mean, we're just going to continue doing really cool projects. I really enjoy getting to build these out and do things that are unique for our neighborhoods. We'll see where it goes. I mean, I'm kind of at this crossroads right now where, I either need to grow up or change what I'm doing. Right. So that means either we're going to bring on family offices or private equity and start doing 20, 40, $50 million deals, or I'm going to just continue doing smaller deals, but taking a larger chunk. It's nice raising capital, but it's not everything that it's made out to be. Everybody talks about how it's all like sunshine and rainbows, but man, I've got one deal that I've got 50 investors in. That means multiply that times 10 for the amount of phone calls that I had to have to get all of those investors to say yes, and all the people that said no. Multiply that times every single page of paperwork that they have to sign. Multiply that times 50 wires that you've got to chase down for them to get the money in before you close. It's great. Everybody's going to make a lot of money, but it's, then I've got to report to the investors every month while we're under construction, and then quarterly thereafter. And then at the end of the deal, you kind of look at it and you're like, well, I signed on all the debt for this. I'm only getting, X amount of return. Could I have done that if I just built some townhomes with one partner? Probably. So that's kind of where I am now, is like either we grow up and we do the private equity thing, or, now that I've raised capital and had some successful deals, we've got some cash in the bank where maybe I just start doing my own deals. I always kind of treat it as a means to an end. But we'll see where it goes.
Well, listen, let's wrap this up with one last pointer, or even maybe your top 3 tips to someone who's brand new in the business, whether, a commercial realtor looking to get their feet wet on the investment side, or even an investor looking to buy their first deal. What are, maybe 3 key points that you'd even recommend to someone new in the business?
Yeah, I mean, look, you've got to learn everything you can. It doesn't matter how many people if you don't know how these deals get structured, or if you don't know how to get creative with some of this stuff, it's not going to work. The amount of times I've had to get really creative and think out of the box just to make a deal happen probably far outnumbers the amount of times that a deal has just gone the traditional way. And that's the difference between making a lot of money in this business and doing okay in this business. The next thing is get out there and network with everybody that you possibly can, and build intentional relationships. Don't just, hand out a business card at a Chamber of Commerce meeting. Get to actually know people, because the more that you know them, the more you can send them business or send them referrals. I mean, we send business out to a ton of people, right? Because, on the brokerage side, we've got clients that are signing leases. Well, they're going to need a contractor, and they're going to need an attorney, and they're going to need a CPA, and they're going to need this, that, and the other. And so the more that we send business to other people, the more that we're going to be top of mind for them, because it's the law of reciprocation, right? If we send an attorney business, he's going to be thinking about us more and more. And the next time he's got a client that says, hey, I've got $1 million I want to place somewhere. Do you know anybody? He's going to call us. And third, I would just say, keep at it. Keep your nose on the grindstone. I mean, commercial real estate is a long-term game. It is not something that you're going to get rich quick in 12 months like I thought when I first started. And I'm really glad that I didn't. Showed me that hard work pays off. Right. It really does.
Thanks, man. I appreciate you doing this. I mean, I think the audience got I got a lot out of this. So I appreciate it a lot. How can my audience find you? Where do they follow you?
Absolutely. We do a whole bunch of videos on YouTube. I think we're over like 300 or 350 videos now on YouTube on commercial real estate. So go check that out. It's just my name at Tyler Cobble. And then if you want to actually get in touch with me or follow me, it's Instagram at Commercial in Nashville.
Beautiful. Well, thank you again, man. This has been fantastic. Looking forward to having you on the channel again. And for everyone who's watching, make sure you check out Tyler's content. And I'll see you soon, my friend. Thank you.
If you're still watching this video, that means to me that you're a committed real estate agent and you're looking to take your life and business to the next level. I'm just curious. Why have you yet to schedule your free, no obligation coaching consultation? All you have to do is simply go in the description down below, and people are telling me this call has been the most unbelievable, the most powerful call they've had in their entire career. And here's just a few of the individuals who have taken full advantage of this call. And my mission is to support as many realtors as possible, build a 6- and 7-figure net income business so that they don't have to rely on this industry anymore for their everyday income. If you're a committed realtor, which I can seem like you are, all you have to simply do to take full advantage of this free coaching consultation is to go in the description down below and schedule your free call now.